In Europe, German witnesses were among the first to go to concentration camps for refusing to perform the Hitler salute. When word of their persecution spread to Minersville, Pennsylvania, in the heart of Pennsylvania coal country, two brave young Jehovah's Witnesses, Billy Gobitis and his sister Lillian, kept their hands at their sides while the other children said the Pledge of Allegiance. The children had the support of their parents, Ruth and Walter Gobitis, grocery store owners who quietly helped their neighbors during the Great Depression. Their family Bible studies taught them to obey only those laws that were consistent with God's teachings. When the school board threatened to send Billy and Lillian to reform school, the Jehovah's Witness families hired a qualified teacher and set up a kingdom school so they could continue their education. Walter Gobitis turned his delivery truck into a makeshift school bus. Soon, kingdom schools began to spring up across the country to accommodate the hundreds of young witnesses who were expelled for putting their religious beliefs into practice. On behalf of his children, Walter Gobitis filed a lawsuit that eventually made its way to the Supreme Court. The Constitution protected free speech and the free exercise of religion, and he would make sure that it was worth the paper it was written on. Lillian was working in the kitchen with her mother when the news came over the radio. They dropped what they were doing and stared in disbelief. The Supreme Court ruled 8-1 against Gobitis. The mandatory flag salute was upheld. National unity is the basis of national security, wrote Justice Felix Frankfurter, even at the cost of individual liberty. The only dissent came from the pen of Harlan Fiske Stone. He believed the First Amendment should protect freedom of mind and spirit. No one anticipated the brutal violence that followed the Supreme Court's decision. Jehovah's Witnesses were beaten, lynched, tarred and feathered, and jailed for being un-American. A mob of 2,500 self-styled patriots, including members of the American Legion, ransacked and then torched a kingdom hall in Kennebunk, Maine. Hundreds of cases were documented in 44 states. Some were referred to the Justice Department, then headed by Attorney General Robert Jackson, the nation's chief law enforcement officer. First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt defended the witnesses in her newspaper column. Solicitor General Francis Biddle called the vigilante attacks an outrage. The American Civil Liberties Union and newspaper editorials blasted the Supreme Court decision for promoting bigotry and inciting violence. Two little girls who lived near Charleston, West Virginia, Gaithy Barnett and her sister Marie, were sent home with their cousins from Slip Hill Grade School because they would not join their classmates in saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
The West Virginia Board of Education had required that all school children salute the flag. This was a time right after the World War II began. There was great patriotism. And West Virginia School Board felt that every child should show this patriotism in the morning.
Non-compliance meant parents could face imprisonment or lose custody of their children. When Hayden Covington, a lawyer at the Jehovah's Witness headquarters in New York, got wind of the case, he seized the opportunity to challenge the Gobitis ruling. By the time West Virginia Board of Education versus Barnett reached the Supreme Court.
Curious, what did your dad do for a living?
He worked for DuPont, DuPont Chemical Company at the time when this all went on. She was 21 months older than I was. She was born in 31, I was born in 33.
December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
I remember coming over the radio that that the Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor. Of course, I probably didn't realize where Pearl Harbor was at the time, but yes, I remember, and that the war was declared. Remember that well. We always went to public schools. First school we attended to was a little two-room school called Wolf Pen School.
Were your parents always Jehovah's Witnesses?
They started studying when I was a baby, and learned at that time. We called it the truth because that's what we believe it is, the truth as the Bible teaches it. Dad's brother, my uncle Oral, he was the one who originally was given some material, but was distributed by the Bible students, as they were called at that time. And he brought it home to the family, and they all started reading it and enjoyed it and obtained more literature.
What was your understanding of the teachings about the Pledge of Allegiance? I mean, did you have much instruction on that?
Well, evidently we did, Greg, because when that came up, when the situation came up, we knew exactly what to do. Now, as far as saying I can remember them sitting us down and talking to us about it, I don't. But like I said, we knew what to do. We knew where our stand would be, and we told our teacher and the principal about in Exodus 24:5, where it said we shouldn't have any other graven image, anything that except to worship Jehovah God. As I remember, the teacher, of course, noticed that we weren't saluting the flag, and she went and told the principal of the school, and he came and told us, took us out and told us that, wanted to know why. Of course, we explained to him, and he said, well, if you're not going to salute the flag, you can't go to school. So they told us to go home. So we did, and that we went to school and was at home every day for several weeks. I don't remember exactly how long, but for several weeks, until finally they got into the courts and the lawyers got into the act, and they told us that, well, just to stay home. And after that, then is when the truant officer come around, accusing us, my parents, of not sending us to school, and my dad had to go to what we called a JP court back then, and they had to go put up bond, keep them going to jail. We were out that whole semester, and that between that time and when school started the next fall, in West Virginia, the court said that we didn't have to salute the flag, we could go back to school.
So in 1942, you get expelled from school. West Virginia had a law similar to Pennsylvania, which was deemed constitutional. Yet, when it went to the local district court, you guys won.
Right.
Did you stay out of school then, or did you go back to school?
We went back to school in September when school started again. Still in 42. Well, I think probably we were put out maybe the last of February, first part of March, and we were out that semester. We started back again in September.
Case finally is decided, Flag Day, 1943. Again, you're pretty young. Did you have any remembrance of your dad coming in and say, my gosh?
I remember them at the time talking about it, that, it was all over with. Supreme Court had said we could go to school. There wasn't any need for there to be any more controversy about it. Kids in our class were curious. They asked about it, of course, wanted to know why we didn't, why we weren't in school, but they weren't cruel. I had relatives that were, my dad's sister had children older than we were, and they had a pretty rough time of it. My cousin David McClure, he had fought his way out of a few situations, was not allowed to go to school. He had to walk home, and it was several miles. And then his older sister, she was in high school, and she had to ride the school bus a long distances to the high school. And she didn't salute the flag, but she couldn't get home, so she had to stay in the principal's office all day. Because there was no way for her to get home.
People tracking you down, you and your sister, to kind of comment on all this?
Over the years, there's been dozens, I'm sure, different people wanting to write, that were writing books about it, writing articles about it, school children who were doing essays on it. Even the New York Times newspaper sent photographers to West Virginia and my sister came to my house and they interviewed us, and there was it actually was an article in the New York Times about it.
What's the Marie Barnett quote they want to get?
what do you remember? What did the kids, like you said, what did the other kids say to you? That's the main thing. What do you remember about it? What were your feelings at the time about it?
Do you get a sense of the legacy of the case? The Jehovah's Witnesses were willing to go to court. Your name is on that case. If it's one of the foremost Supreme Court cases ever. West Virginia versus Barnett, and you're a Barnett. What's that kind of mean to you?
I guess just that I'm proud of the fact that I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, was able to and proud to stand up for what we believe and be proud to say what we believed, and that hoping that other people would accept us and appreciate what we believe, like we try to appreciate what anybody else's believe. We talk to people about what we believe, but we do not try to force anyone to believe. That it's their own choice. And so I just hope that people that give me that same privilege of being proud of what I am and what, I don't know how else to explain it, Greg. About 10 years ago, I was asked if I wanted to go to New Orleans to watch a case where two children in Texas, their case was carried up to the appellate court in New Orleans. It wasn't about the flag salute, but it was just about children's rights, First Amendment rights. And that was a privilege to go down there because we heard a lot of good things said at that time because of in fact, we were told that the Barnett case was used as a precedent for other cases above any other case that went through the Supreme Court.
On Flag Day, June 14, 1943, the Supreme Court announced its decision to uphold the First Amendment rights of the Jehovah's Witness schoolchildren. The vote was 6-3.
Jackson wrote the majority opinion for the Supreme Court and said that these girls could refuse to salute the flag. They had the right to refuse this. They had religious freedom. They couldn't be forced to say something they didn't believe, and it was wrong to keep them out of school.
If there is any fixed star in our constitutional constellation, it is that no official, high or petty, can prescribe what shall be orthodox in politics, nationalism, religion, or other matters of opinion, or force citizens to confess by word or act their faith therein.
He's writing an anthem about what true patriotism is: voluntary flag salute, voluntary patriotism, at a time when it's being fought for against people who feel otherwise. So that opinion is perhaps his greatest, because it really understands and fits a moment that is both two little girls in West Virginia and 1 million soldiers on fields of combat.
The flag salute case marked a turning point for religious freedom and freedom of speech in the United States. The court had the power to protect minorities from what Alexis de Tocqueville, author of Democracy in America, called the tyranny of the majority.
You hope the message it's given to folks.
Well, the thing of it is, most people know what happened, that the flag salute case and all this, but they don't really know why it happened, why we take the stand we do. All they know is it happened, not really the reasons behind it. And we're just hoping to enlighten people about what our stand is and what it means to us and where our stand comes from, exactly, from the Bible, and what we know is as the truth of the Bible says.
Because of your name, you're a celebrity.
I don't feel like a celebrity. In fact, sometimes I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's like, I don't like it given to me, all that praise given to me personally, because it wasn't anything that I personally, I don't know how to explain it, Greg, but I just feel like I'm honored. I really am honored that people do this But sometimes maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm just a little embarrassed like that. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I shouldn't be out in front of everything. I just hope I'm a good representative.
You are. You're unbelievable.